Hello, citizens of the future. This is Taylor in the past, welcoming you to my talk about Absolut vodka infusions. First off, we're going to take a look at the London Calling. Now, this is an Absolut vanilla infusion using a couple fun ingredients. Of course, we've got our Earl Grey tea, a Grand Marnier, some cardamom pods, lavender, some really lovely lavender, mint, and of course, an oleo sacrum. Now, oleo sacrum, as you can see, is 4 peeled lemons, 3 peeled limes, and a half cup of sugar. I really love oleo sacrum, and it is really necessary for the infusion style that we're going to be doing today. That's because we're going to be using a sous vide wand. Now, that sous vide wand is going to technically a low temperature cook all of our ingredients together, giving a much more rich and full flavor to this cocktail that we're creating. I wanted to not only show, sort of regular style service cocktail with the Malfi Gin we're going to be trying a little bit later, but also I wanted to play with some interesting ways that we can look at really what cocktailing is, especially at home and especially with some of our much more craft cocktail bars out in the cities. Now, because we're going to be cooking these ingredients, I wanted to create this oleo sacrum because when you cook with citrus, lemons, or limes, a lot of times it's going to pull a lot of bitterness from the acid. And so, creating this oleo sacrum, this rich citrus simple, essentially you're preserving the full true flavor of the lemon and lime. Now we're getting into the actual build for this cocktail. So of course we're going to start with our sugar, build into a little bit of our Earl Grey tea bags. Now that's really one of the reasons we're sous videing today, is because I wanted to get the full depth of flavor, not just from the tea, but also from our dry ingredients. Now in infusion, usually you would sit and cold infuse, and that can take anywhere from a couple of days to a couple of weeks or even months, depending on your ingredient. Using the sous vide wand, you're essentially able to take that work and cut it down to a couple hours of very low temperature heating and cooking. So we're building out our ingredients here. Most importantly, that Absolut vanilla is really the backbone of the flavors we're using, which is why I really do consider this an infusion at the same time as a cocktail. And now you can see through the magic of television, we have our finished oleosacrum sitting about, like I said, 6 hours. Then you want to strain out all of your peels, and you'll have this really beautiful heavy syrup that honestly you can add to about anything. We're going to use all of it here for our cocktail before we go through and give that a good shake. Next up, we're looking at the Hachi Machi. Now, this is an absolute pear and absolute pepper infusion using a couple fun ingredients, a perfect blend of dry and sweet vermouth, hojija, Japanese green tea, as well as cranberry. With this build, I was most interested in how I could complement and bring out the lovely flavors of the green tea with sort of fruit and lightly vegetal flavors, like from the absolute pepper and the green bell pepper flavor there. We added our dry ingredients, so now it's time to go in naturally with our wets. And if you haven't had it together, the absolute pepper and absolute pear is a nice little combo. It's really lovely. You sort of get this full gamut from both flavors. All the subtleties come together super well. And now it's time, honestly, for the part of the video that's really just for me. Cranberries. Right in between your fingers. Just squish them. Now that everything's combined, go ahead, close that lid, and shake it with all that you got. So you've now successfully put a bunch of junk in some mason jars, but what do you do next? And that's what this little doodade's for. So this is our sous vide wand. Essentially what it does is it circulates the water and heats it to an exact temperature, which is so important when we're playing with some of these fragile ingredients like the citrus and the green tea. Another reason to sous vide instead of traditional cook is you don't lose any of the proofing on your cocktail. There's nowhere for the alcohol to evaporate because it's in a watertight container. Okay, so I may have forgotten that the oleosaccharum takes about 6 hours to make, and so you have to come back to get your second jar and put it in about halfway. Just make sure to set a second timer. 2.5 hours later. Now's your chance to use your fanciest utensil that you never use in your house and go ahead and pull out that finished cocktail. We're going to go through and run it under cold water. It is going to be very hot, of course, as we're finishing up. Afterwards, go ahead and toss that in the fridge so it can get down to chilled temperatures. The last step in this delicious marathon is to filter. So go ahead and get out your spider, or colander, whatever you want to use, and get all the junk, all the trash out of your liquid, and then go ahead and do it a second time with cheesecloth. Make sure you squeeze out everything. You don't want to lose a single ounce of this perfect cocktail. After going back into our mason jar, we are ready for our final thoughts. The Hachimachi really gave me everything that I wanted it to. It has this unbelievable green tea flavor that has me ready to ascend to nirvana. The London Calling is my Earl Grey dream. The floral, the bergamot, the sweetness. This is the best vodka neat you could possibly ask for. Thanks for cooking booze with me. Cheers.